You just signed the papers, the pumps, the building, the little store with the flickering open sign. All of it is yours now. Before your first customer even pulls in, a wholesale fuel invoice is already sitting in your inbox. It's bigger than you expected. And the strange part is, that bill barely tells you anything about whether you're going to make money. From the outside, this looked like one of the safest businesses you could buy. Cars need gas. People will always need gas. The location is on a busy corner and traffic never really stops, even at 2 in the morning. You paid somewhere between $250,000 and $1 million to take this over, depending on the size of the lot, the number of pumps, and how much equipment came with the deal. Some buyers pay less for a small independent site in a quiet town. Others pay closer to 7 figures for a branded location on a highway exit with a dozen pumps and a full kitchen inside. Either way, that number alone tells you this isn't a hobby. It's a real operating business, and it starts eating money the moment you take the keys. Your first walkthrough as the owner feels different than it did as a customer. You notice the underground tanks you can't see but are now legally responsible for. You notice the walk-in cooler humming in the back, already stocked with someone else's inventory that you now own. You notice the security camera feed, the register, the deli counter, the lottery terminal. This is not one business. It's several small businesses stacked inside a single building, and every one of them needs to work at the same time for this to make sense. Look at the sign out front. The price glowing above the pumps looks like your profit. It isn't. Out of every gallon you sell, the wholesale markup, the actual gross margin you're working with, is somewhere around 35 to 40 cents. That sounds fine until you start subtracting things. Credit card processing takes a bite first, roughly 8 cents a gallon, because almost everyone pays with plastic now. Getting the fuel from the terminal to your tanks costs you more. Running the equipment, keeping the pumps calibrated, covering basic store overhead tied to fuel sales. That eats further into the number. By the time it's all accounted for, you're left with somewhere around 10 to 15 cents of real margin on every single gallon. Not 35, not 40, 10 to 15. Here's what that means in practice. A customer fills up with 15 gallons. You just watched roughly $2 in true profit walk out of your lot. Multiply that by hundreds of fill-ups a day, and it starts to look like something. But it also means one bad week of price competition down the street can wipe that thin margin out entirely, and the wholesale price you pay for the fuel itself moves every single day, sometimes every few hours, depending on crude oil, refinery output, and regional supply. You don't set that number. The market does. All you control is the markup you post on the sign, and even that decision is really a bet on your neighbor's pricing, not your own costs. Post it too high, and drivers simply keep driving. Post it too low, and you're funding their fill up out of your own pocket just to get them to stop. So if the pumps aren't where the real money is, where is it? Walk inside your own store. This is where the business actually lives. Fuel might be the reason cars pull in, but it is not the reason your doors stay open. Nationally, fuel makes up around 2/3 of a station's total sales in dollars, but less than 40% of its actual gross profit. The rest of the profit, the majority of it, comes from what's sitting on your shelves and behind your counter. The average customer who walks into your store spends around $7.80. A drink, a snack, something quick. It doesn't sound like much per person, but a typical convenience store rings up close to 1,500 transactions a day between the pumps and the counter. That volume is the real engine, and inside that volume, one category quietly outperforms everything else: prepared food, coffee, hot sandwiches, made-to-order items. This is the highest margin category in your entire store, and it now makes up close to 30% of everything sold inside. It also generates close to 40% of your total in-store profit. The drink cooler and the snack aisle matter, but the hot food counter is doing more heavy lifting than most new owners ever expect. This is the twist most people never see coming when they picture owning a gas station. You think you bought a fuel business. You actually bought a small retail operation that happens to have pumps attached to it. Think about what that actually changes day to day. The employee behind your counter isn't just ringing up gas. They're the one deciding whether the coffee pot stays fresh, whether the hot dog roller is running at 7 in the morning when the commuter rush walks in, whether the shelves are stocked before the after-school crowd shows up for chips and energy drinks. Every one of those small decisions moves your real profit more than anything happening at the pumps outside. A customer who only fuels up and drives away is close to break even for you. A customer who fuels up and walks inside for coffee and a breakfast sandwich is the one actually paying your bills. But owning that retail operation comes with its own weight. Staffing a location that's open around the clock means paying for coverage through the night. Even during the hours, almost nobody walks in. Hourly wages for convenience retail have been climbing, now running somewhere in the $16 to $18 range depending on your market. Add insurance. Add the ongoing cost of monitoring and maintaining your underground fuel tanks, which regulators require regardless of how much gas you actually sell that month. Add basic shrinkage, theft, spoilage, simple loss, which quietly claims 1 to 2% of your revenue every year, whether you notice it happening or not. Now, new pressure shows up. The gas station across the street drops its price by a few cents a gallon. You have a decision to make. Match them, and your already thin fuel margin gets thinner. Hold your price, and you risk losing the drivers who pull in, and with them, the store visits that actually generate your profit. This is the tension that defines the entire business. Fuel pricing isn't really about fuel, it's about protecting foot traffic into the store behind the pumps. Meanwhile, the clock never really stops on your expenses. Someone has to be behind that counter at 3 in the morning, whether or not anyone walks through the door. The lights stay on, the coolers keep running, the security system keeps recording. None of that pauses just because traffic slows down overnight. Every hour your doors are open is an hour of fixed cost, whether a single customer shows up or 50 dough. That's the quiet math working against you in the background, underneath every price decision you make out front. So what does it actually take to keep this place alive? A typical single location station generates somewhere around $1.5 million a year in total sales. After the wholesale fuel costs, the card fees, the payroll, the insurance, the maintenance, and the routine cost of simply staying open 24 hours a day, and what's typically left over lands in the range of $70,000 to $75,000 a year in profit. That's the reward for running a business with 6 or 7 figures of revenue flowing through it. It's real money. It is not the fantasy number most people imagine when they picture owning a location that never stops seeing customers. And that gap, the space between $1.5 million in sales and roughly $70,000 in actual profit, is the entire story of this business. It's a business built on volume and thin margins stacked on top of each other, one thin layer at a time. Fuel brings people in at almost no margin. The store converts a fraction of them into real profit. Every operating cost you pay is quietly subtracted from that fraction before it ever reaches you. Does that make this a good business to own? It depends entirely on what you're optimizing for. As a pure fuel business, the economics are genuinely difficult. Margins measured in single-digit cents that can vanish with one price war. As a convenience retail business that happens to sell gas, it looks considerably more workable, especially if you can push more customers toward that high-margin food counter instead of just the pump. Scale changes the picture too. Owners running several locations spread fixed costs further and gain real negotiating leverage with fuel suppliers. A single station on its own is running close to the edge more often than people assume. This is not a business that rewards passive ownership. It rewards attention to the thing most people overlook: what's happening inside the store, not what's glowing on the sign outside. So picture that fuel invoice again, the one waiting for you on day one. It's not really a bill for gasoline. It's the entry fee to a much smaller, much more competitive business hiding behind a familiar storefront, one where the real profit was never really about the price on the sign at all.